"Who is the father of your child?" the lawyer asked coldly. Adana Okafor sat in the marble conference room, hands trembling on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, alone, facing 5 lawyers in black suits. Her husband, no, her ex-husband, sat at the far end of the table. Chukwudi Okafor, the youngest billionaire in Lagos, owner of Okafor Holdings. The man she had loved with everything she had. He didn't even look at her. "Answer the question," the lead lawyer repeated. Adana's voice was barely a whisper. "Chukwudi, he's the father." Chukwudi finally looked up, his eyes cold as steel. "That's what we're here to determine." Her heart shattered all over again, but his life was going to change today. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. Chukwudi Okafor had built his empire on one principle: trust no one. He had clawed his way from Ajagunle to Victoria Island, from selling phone cards on the street to owning the biggest real estate empire in West Africa. And he had done it by eliminating weakness. Love, he believed, was weakness. That day, he was about to close the divorce. Clean, fast, brutal. His lawyer slid a document across the table. "Mrs. Okafor, sign here. You'll receive 50 million naira as settlement. In return, you relinquish all claims to Mr. Okafor's assets, properties, and future income." Adana stared at the paper. 50 million. It sounded like a fortune. But she knew what Chukwudi was worth. Billions. This was pocket change to him. "And the baby?" she asked quietly. The lawyer didn't blink. "Mr. Okafor requests a DNA test immediately after birth. If the child is his, he will provide child support as determined by the court. If not," he paused, "you will return the settlement and face legal consequences for fraud." Adana's hands tightened into fists. "You think I cheated?" Chukwudi leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I think you were seen having coffee with your ex-boyfriend 3 months before you told me you were pregnant. I think you've been lying to me about where you go on Thursday afternoons. I think this baby might not be mine." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I never cheated on you, Chukwudi. Not once." He smiled a thin, cruel smile. "Then you have nothing to worry about. Sign the paper." She looked at him. This man she had married 2 years ago in a ceremony at Eco Hotel, surrounded by Lagos elite, cameras flashing, champagne flowing. She had believed in forever. Now forever was a lie. She picked up the pen. Her hand shook. She signed. Chukwudi stood immediately. "My lawyers will be in touch." He walked toward the door without a backward glance. "Chukwudi," she called out. He stopped but didn't turn around. "The baby kicks every night at 9 p.m., she whispered. "Just like clockwork. She's strong. Just like you." For a moment, just a brief flicker, something crossed his face. Then it was gone. He walked out. Adana sat alone in that cold room, hand on her belly, and whispered her unborn daughter, "It's just you and me now." But she didn't know. Someone had been watching. Someone who knew the truth. And that person was about to turn Chukwudi's world upside down. 2 months passed. Adana moved into a small one-bedroom flat in Surulere, far from the Ikoyi mansion she had once called home. Her friends, Chukwudi's friends, really stopped calling. Her family was in Enugu, too far and too ashamed of the scandal to help much. She sold jewelry to pay rent. She attended antenatal clinic alone. She assembled the baby cot by herself, crying halfway through because she couldn't tighten the screws properly. But she survived because she had to. At 2:47 a.m. on a rainy September night, her water broke. She called a taxi. No husband to rush her to the hospital. No hand to hold in the back seat as contractions tore through her. At Lagoon Hospital, she labored for 11 hours. Alone, nurses were kind but busy. The doctor was professional but distant. At 1:32 p.m., her daughter was born. 7 pounds 4 ounces. Perfect tiny fingers. A small cry that sounded like a miracle. The nurse placed the baby on her chest. Adana looked down at her daughter's face and saw him. The same deep-set eyes. The same sharp nose. The same stubborn chin. She looks just like her father, The nurse said warmly. Adana kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, she does. She named her Zainab. It meant fragrant flower. Something beautiful growing from pain. 3 days later, while Adana was still in a hospital, a man in a dark suit arrived. He carried a briefcase and a court order. Mrs. Okafor, I'm here to collect a DNA sample from the child. Her arms tightened around Zainab. She's 3 days old. Court order, ma'am. It's non-invasive. Just a cheek swab. She had no choice. She watched as the man swabbed inside of Zainab's tiny mouth, sealed it in a plastic bag, labeled it, and left without another word. Adana held her daughter close and cried. Chakwudi received the DNA test results on a Tuesday afternoon. He was in his office on the 40th floor of Okafor Towers, overlooking Lagos Lagoon. His secretary brought the sealed envelope marked confidential. He opened it calmly. He had been certain. Adana had been distant, secretive. There had been signs. He scanned the document. His eyes landed on the conclusion section. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. Conclusion: Chakwudi Okafor is the biological father of Zainab Okafor. The paper slipped from his fingers. He read it again, and again. 99.98%. She was his. The baby was his. Adana hadn't lied. She had never cheated, and he had thrown her out, divorced her, left her to give birth alone. Something cold and sharp twisted in his chest. He stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the city he had conquered. For the first time in years, Chakwudi Okafor felt something he didn't know how to handle. Guilt. But guilt, he would soon learn, was only the beginning. Chakwudi didn't call, didn't text. But 3 days after receiving the results, a delivery arrived at Adana's flat. A lawyer. Again, Mr. Okafor wishes to establish a visitation schedule. He also wants to provide financial support beyond the court minimum. Adana stood in the doorway, Zainab asleep in a sling against her chest. Tell Mr. Okafor I don't need his money. The lawyer blinked. Mrs. Okafor, he's offering 500,000 naira per month. I said no. She closed the door. Her hand was shaking. 500,000 naira could change her life, but taking it would mean letting him back in, and she wouldn't let him hurt her again. But Chakwudi didn't give up. The next week, another delivery. This time, baby supplies, diapers, formula clothes, a new cot, a stroller. Adana stared at the boxes piled in her tiny living room. She wanted to refuse, but Zainab needed these things. She kept them, but she didn't say thank you. The week after, Chakwudi came himself. He knocked on her door at 6 p.m., still wearing his work suit, looking tired. Adana opened the door halfway. What do you want? To see her. You had 9 months to care. You didn't. I know. His voice was quiet. Not the cold businessman. Something softer. I was wrong. She wanted to slam the door, but Zainab started crying inside. That soft newborn wail. Chakwidi's eyes flickered toward the sound. Something in his face cracked. Please, he said. Adana hesitated. Then, against every instinct, she stepped aside. He walked in slowly. The flat was small, nothing like the mansion he owned, but it was clean, warm. There were baby clothes hanging to dry on a line by the window, a bassinet in the corner. Adana picked up Zainab and held her protectively. You can look. Don't touch. Chakwudi stepped closer. His eyes locked on his daughter's face. She was awake now, tiny eyes blinking up at him. He saw himself in her. Undeniably, the DNA test had been right. But seeing her, holding space in the same room, was different. She's beautiful, he whispered. Adana said nothing. I'm sorry, he added. Sorry doesn't change what you did. I know. Zainab started fussing. Adana sat down and began to breastfeed her, turning slightly away. Chakwudi stood awkwardly, unsure where to put his hands. Why did you think I cheated? Adana asked quietly, not looking at him. He exhaled. You were different, distant. You stopped telling me where you went. I was planning a surprise for your birthday, she said bitterly. I was taking business classes on Thursdays. I wanted to start my own fashion line. I wanted to make you proud. Chikwudi froze. What? The man you saw me with? That was my cousin, Emeka. He was helping me set up meetings with investors. But you didn't ask. You just assumed. His chest tightened. He had destroyed everything over an assumption. I tried to tell you, Adana continued, but you wouldn't listen. You made up your mind, filed the papers, and walked away. Chikwudi sank onto the small couch. He put his face in his hands. Adana finally looked at him. Why are you really here, Chikwudi? He looked up. Because I can't stop thinking about her. About you. About what I did. You don't get to feel guilty and be forgiven in the same breath. I know. Zainab finished feeding and fell asleep in Adana's arms. Chikwudi watched them, mother and daughter, and felt something break inside him. Flashback 2.5 years ago. A rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island. Candles flickering on the table. The Lagos skyline glittering in the distance. Chikwudi had reserved the entire place. Just for her. Adana wore a gold dress that caught the light. She laughed at something he said, and he thought, I want to hear that sound for the rest of my life. He got down on one knee. She said yes before he even finished the question. They married 3 months later. She moved into his mansion. He bought her anything she wanted. But slowly, he disappeared into work. Meetings. Deals. Travel. She tried to talk to him. I feel like I'm losing you. He kissed her forehead. You'll never lose me. I'm building this for us. But us became him. And she became lonely. Back to the present. Chikwudi stood. I should go. Adana nodded. At the door, he turned back. Can I come again? She looked at him for a long moment. Once a week. Saturdays. 1 hour. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a crack in the wall. Thank you, he said. He left. But something had shifted. For the first time since the divorce, Adana felt a flicker of something dangerous. Hope. And Chikwudi. He went home to his empty mansion and realized he had everything except what mattered. Chikwudi came back the next Saturday. And the Saturday after that. And again the Saturday after that. At first, he just watched. Adana would place Zainab on a playmat, and he would sit on the floor, staring at his daughter as if she were a puzzle he needed to solve. You can hold her, Adana finally said one day. He looked terrified. What if I drop her? You won't. She placed Zainab in his arms. He held her stiffly, awkwardly, like she was made of glass. But Zainab looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes and yawned. Chikwudi laughed, a real, unguarded laugh. Adana hadn't heard that sound in years. By the 4th visit, he was changing diapers. Badly. Adana had to show him how to fasten the tabs properly. You're a billionaire and you can't work a diaper, she teased. I can negotiate a $50 million deal, but this... He held up the crooked diaper. This defeats me. They both laughed. It felt strange. Familiar. Dangerous. One Saturday, Zainab wouldn't stop crying. Adana was exhausted, eyes red from sleepless nights. Chikwudi took the baby and walked her around the tiny flat, humming softly. Within minutes, Zainab was asleep on his shoulder. Adana stared. How did you? He shrugged. I don't know. Maybe she just needed a change of arms. Adana sat down, suddenly overwhelmed. I've been doing this alone for months. Chikwudi looked at her. You shouldn't have to. Something passed between them. Not words, just understanding. He started coming twice a week, then 3 times. He brought groceries, fixed the leaking tap, installed a new lock on the door. You don't have to do all this, Adana said. I want to. One evening, as the sun set over Surulere, Chikwudi sat on a small balcony while Adana fed Zainab inside. He watched the crowded streets below. Motorcycles weaving through traffic, street vendors calling out their wares, children playing football in the dust. He had spent years looking down at Lagos from skyscrapers, but he had never really seen it. Not like this. Here, life was loud, messy, real. And for the first time in a long time, Chikwudi felt peace. Real peace. Not the kind that came from closing deals or seeing his name in Forbes Africa. The kind that came from watching his daughter sleep. from hearing Adana hum while she cooked, from being part of something bigger than himself. But peace, he would learn, always has a price. One Tuesday afternoon, his business partner, Obi, cornered him at the office. "Chitty, we need to talk." Chikwudi looked up from his laptop. "About? You've missed 4 board meetings in the last month. I sent my notes." "Notes aren't leadership." Obi sat down. "The investors are asking questions. They're worried. You're distracted. I'm handling it. Are you?" Obi leaned forward. "Because word on the street is you're spending time in Surulere with your ex-wife." Chikwidi's jaw tightened. "That's my business." "It becomes my business when it affects the company." Obi's voice softened. "I'm your friend, Chitty. I'm worried. What are you doing?" Chikwudi didn't answer, because he didn't know. That night, he had dinner at his penthouse with Nkem. Beautiful Nkem, a corporate lawyer. Elegant, ambitious. They had been dating for 3 months, ever since the divorce was finalized. She poured wine and smiled. "I barely see you anymore. Work's been busy." "Is it work?" She set down her glass. "Or is it her?" Chikwudi looked up sharply. "What are you talking about?" "Your ex-wife. You visit her, don't you?" "I visit my daughter." "Every other day?" He said nothing. Nkem reached across the table and took his hand. "Chitty, I care about you. But I need to know, are you over her?" He opened his mouth to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. Later, after Nkem had left, Chikwudi stood alone in his massive living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, imported furniture, art on the walls, empty. He went to his bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of his nightstand. Inside, a small baby sock. Zainab had kicked it off during one of his visits. He had slipped it into his pocket without thinking. He held it in his palm. So tiny, so impossibly small. His phone buzzed. A text from Adana. Zainab smiled today. A real smile. Wish you could have seen it. Chikwudi stared at the message. His chest felt tight. He typed, "I wish I had too." But his heart, it was already elsewhere. Rain hammered against the roof of Adana's flat. The kind of Lagos rain that came fast and angry, flooding streets in minutes. Chikwudi sat on the floor, Zainab asleep in his arms. Adana was in the kitchen making tea. The power had gone out, so the flat was lit by candlelight. It felt like a different world. Quiet, intimate, safe. Adana returned with 2 mugs. She handed one to Chikwudi and sat beside him. "She loves you," Adana said softly. "I love her too." He looked down at Zainab's peaceful face. "I didn't think I could feel like this." "Like what?" "Like I'd die for someone." Adana's breath caught. She set down her mug. "Adana?" Chikwudi turned to her. "I need to tell you something." Before he could continue, Adana's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's my cousin Emeka." "Hold on." She stepped into the bedroom and answered. Chikwudi stayed on the floor, holding Zainab, staring at the rain streaking down the window. Then he heard it, Adana's voice, soft but clear through the thin walls. "No, Emeka, I don't think Chikwudi knows yet." Chikwudi froze. He's been coming around, spending time with Zainab. He's different now, softer. But... A pause. "I haven't told him about the hospital." Chikwidi's heart began to pound. "The doctor said if I don't get the surgery within 6 months, it could be... Yes, I know. But the cost? Emeka, it's 12 million naira. I can't ask him for that." Another pause. Chikwudi heard her voice crack. "Because I already lost him once. If I tell him I'm sick, he'll think I'm trying to trap him. And I won't." Chikwudi carefully placed Zainab in her bassinet and stood. His mind was spinning. Adana was sick. She needed surgery. And she hadn't told him. He walked to the bedroom door. Adana was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone to her ear, tears streaming down her face. She looked up and saw him. Her face went pale. "I'll call you back," she whispered and hung up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain filled the silence. "How long?" Chikwidi's voice was rough. "Chikwudi, how long have you been sick?" She looked down. They found it 2 months after Zainab was born. A tumor, benign but growing. They need to operate. 12 million naira. She nodded. And you didn't tell me. His voice rose. You're raising our daughter, dying slowly, and you didn't tell me? Because I didn't want your pity, she shot back, standing. I didn't want you to come back out of guilt or obligation. If you were going to be in our lives, I wanted it to be real. You think I'm here out of obligation? He stepped closer. You think I spend every free moment I have in this flat because I feel guilty? I don't know why you're here, Chikwudi. Her voice broke. You threw me away. You didn't believe me. You left me to have our baby alone. And now you show up with diapers and smiles, and I don't know if I can trust you. He closed the distance between them. His eyes were burning. I'm here because I'm in love with you. Adana's breath stopped. I never stopped, he continued, voice raw. I was angry. I was stupid. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud to believe I could be wrong. But I was wrong. About everything. He took her hands. They were shaking. I see you as Zainab, and I see the woman I fell in love with. Strong, brave, beautiful. And I see the man I used to be, the one who took you to that rooftop and promised forever. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I want that forever back, Chikwudi whispered. I want to wake up next to you. I want to raise our daughter together. I want to be the man you deserve. He dropped to his knees, right there on the floor of her tiny bedroom. Marry me again. Let me fix this. Let me take care of you. Adana covered her mouth, overwhelmed. At that moment, a small sound came from the living room. They both turned. Zainab was awake, sitting up in her bassinet, looking at them with wide, curious eyes. Chikwudi stood, walked over, and picked her up. He held her close. Your mama is sick, he whispered to Zainab, but I'm going to make sure she gets better. I promise. Zainab reached up and touched his face, her tiny hand on his cheek. Adana walked over, tears streaming. Chikwudi pulled her into his arms, the three of them standing together in the candlelight. Yes, Adana whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Chikwudi kissed her forehead. Relief flooded through him. But then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Nkem. He hesitated, then declined the call. I need to end things with someone, he said quietly. I'll do it tonight. Adana nodded, understanding. Chikwudi held her a moment longer, then gently released her. I'll be back in 2 hours. We'll figure out the surgery, the wedding, all of it. He kissed Zainab's head, kissed Adana's lips, and walked toward the door. But as he reached for the handle, the door suddenly opened. Standing there, soaking wet from the rain, was Nkem. Her eyes were red, her hands were trembling, and her voice, when she spoke, was barely a whisper. I came to tell you in person. Chikwudi froze. Nkem, what are you? I'm pregnant, Chitty. The world stopped. Adana's hand flew to her mouth. Chikwudi stared at Nkem, unable to speak. Nkem's tears mixed with the rain on her face. 10 weeks. I found out this morning. I came here because I didn't want you to hear over phone. She looked past Chikwudi and saw Adana holding Zainab. Understanding flickered in her eyes. But I see now, Nkem whispered. I see where your heart is. She turned and walked back into the rain. Chikwudi stood frozen in the doorway. Behind him, Adana's breathing was shallow, rapid. Chikwudi, she whispered. He turned slowly. The look on her face shattered him. Is it true? He closed his eyes. I didn't know. But is it true? He nodded. Adana stepped back, holding Zainab tighter. You need to leave. Adana, please. Leave. Her voice was broken. Final. Chikwudi stood there, rain pouring behind him. The woman he loved in front of him, and another woman carrying his child disappearing into the storm. He had 2 children, 2 women, one impossible choice. Nkem was pregnant, and everything had just collapsed. What should Chikwudi do? Should he stay with Adana and Zainab, the family he abandoned and wants to rebuild? Or should he go to Nkem, the woman carrying his unborn child? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for the next part.